Let's kick things off with a story. It's a story that's over 2,000 years old, but believe me, it has everything to do with our modern digital world. It's all about a king, a god, and one absolutely catastrophic misunderstanding.
So picture this. King Croesus of Lydia gets this prophecy from the most trusted source of information in the entire ancient world, the oracle at Delphi. Hearing this, he's like, "Great, victory is mine." He confidently marches his army off to fight the Persians. But the great empire he ended up destroying, yeah, it was his own.
Okay, so what in the world does a defeated king from the 6th century BC have to do with the cutting edge of computer science? As it turns out, everything. This ancient story perfectly captures a huge challenge that developers and engineers are still wrestling with today. It's a challenge known as the oracle problem.
All right, so let's get into it. This timeless challenge. What is the oracle problem really? Let's break it down.
In simple terms, it's all about trusting outside information. A system, whether it's a self-executing program on a blockchain, what we call a smart contract, or, an ancient kingdom, is basically a closed box. To do its job, it needs reliable data from the outside world. But how can it be sure that data is true? How do you know you can trust your source?
And check this out. This is a fantastic way to visualize the core idea. Up top, you've got the ancient model, the Pythia, the priestess at Delphi. She was the go-between, the data feed between humans and the god Apollo. And below that, the modern version. A computer oracle does the exact same job, acting as the bridge between a program and a real-world data source. The fundamental setup? It hasn't changed one bit.
So, if the structure is the same, you have to ask, what about the risks? Well, it turns out the vulnerabilities of the ancient system have direct parallels in today's tech. The problems of trust haven't just disappeared, they've just been rewritten in code. For instance, the historian Herodotus tells a story about how some powerful Athenians actually bribed the Pythia to give prophecies that would trick their rivals, the Spartans, into going to war. That's literally the ancient equivalent of a hacker today feeding a fake stock price to a financial smart contract, causing it to wrongly liquidate somebody's funds.
And this brings us to a huge issue, centralization. Back then, the entire Greek world was hanging on the words of one priestess in one temple. If she was compromised, the whole system was at risk. Today, we call this centralization risk. You can have a supposedly decentralized system, but if it relies on one single, centralized oracle for its information, it has a massive weak spot.
And of course, there was ambiguity. The data the oracle gave King Croesus wasn't necessarily corrupt or false. It was just incredibly vague. He heard, "You will destroy a great empire," and just assumed it meant his enemies. So the vagueness of the information, even if it was technically true, led straight to disaster. The exact same thing happens today when smart contracts get imprecise data.
But hey, it's not all doom and gloom. If the problems are ancient, maybe some of the solutions are too. By looking back at Delphi's 1,000-year history, we can actually uncover some pretty brilliant ideas for how to build more reliable oracles today.
It turns out the ancients totally understood that not all questions are created equal. Some researchers recently analyzed 167 of the oracle's historical prophecies, and what they found was this absolutely fascinating pattern in the way it responded. It all depended on the kind of question that was asked.
So the researchers broke the questions down into three main types. First, you had discernible events. These were questions about public facts, stuff anyone could go out and verify. Then, sanctioned events, which needed some kind of official judgment. And finally, the really tricky one, recondite events, questions about secret knowledge, like what the future holds.
And the results were just striking. The data clearly shows that when people asked about those discernible public facts, the oracle's answers were direct and clear. But when they asked about that secret, recondite knowledge, well, the answers got way more complex and ambiguous. Sound familiar? That's exactly what happened to our friend King Croesus.
This quote from the philosopher Heraclitus just nails it. The oracle indicates. It doesn't always spell everything out for you. The lesson here is absolutely timeless. If you want clear answers, ask clear questions about things that can actually be verified. That is a crucial design principle for any modern oracle system.
Okay, but what about stopping someone from outright cheating the system? Well, you're not going to believe this, but the ancient Athenians developed this incredible system to make sure the oracle's choice was tamper-proof. And the process they used is shockingly similar to modern cryptography.
Here's how it worked. The Athenians would write two possible outcomes on tablets, seal them up in identical urns, and then ask the oracle to just choose one of the urns. She had no idea what was inside, so she couldn't be biased. The chosen urn was then brought all the way back and opened in public.
This is a perfect ancient example of what cryptographers today call a commit-reveal scheme. The choice was committed to in secret and then revealed in public. It's genius, and it made sure the whole process was fair.
So after digging through 2,000 years of history, from ancient prophecies to modern computer code, where does that leave us? Have we finally solved this ancient problem?
Well, the truth is, the more you look at it, the more you realize the Oracle problem was never really about the technology. It's always been about us. It's about the very human challenges of accountability, manipulation, and interpretation. It's about a question we all have to ask every single day. How do we decide what and who to trust? Technology is always going to change, but that fundamental issue of human trust, that's timeless. So here's the final question. After 2,000 years, is the Oracle problem something we can ever truly solve? Or is it just a permanent challenge that we have to constantly manage? A reminder of that ancient, uncodable human element that sits right at the heart of our most modern creations.